Welcome to the Green Room, Nat and Chris.
Hello.
Hello. We're here to talk about the sales of online dogs and everything to do with that.
Yep.
So let's start off by telling me and everybody else a bit about what you do, how long you've been at Wood Green, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, shall I go first? So
Yeah, go for it.
I've been with Wood Green, I think it's about 8.5, nearly 9 years now, so quite some time. I started off working in the kennels originally, so I did, I think, 4 to 5 years out there working with the dogs, initially in our rehoming section, went in and did a bit of time reception, did a bit in sort of intake and assessment where we were working with the dogs where they'd just come in. Went on to help coordinate the volunteer team down on dog section, doing some training with them and helping them get used to sort of all the procedures and things that we do here to keep the dogs safe. Then I took a little trip over to work for our education department and worked over there, going out to schools, educating children on animal care and things like that. And now, here I am, managing the welcome centre, so welcoming customers to Wood Green and looking after a lot of our rehoming function and just helping pets get to their new homes.
You have done a bit of everything.
Yeah, it feels like it.
You make me feel very boring. And Chris, what do you do at Wood Green?
Yeah, much the opposite. So this is year 14 for me at Wood Green in dog section. So I started as a carer / rehomer out in the kennels with the dogs. A year or two doing that, and then moved into the sort of deputy manager position, so managing intake, assessment of new dogs, and then for the last year or two being section manager, so looking after the whole shindig.
The whole shindig. How's that going?
Yeah, tiring.
Good? You enjoying it?
It's very enjoyable and very tiring. Very emotive, but fantastic.
Yeah, that's the whole job, isn't it?
Yeah.
Very emotive,
why
very
we're
up and down, but we do it because we love it. So obviously a lot's changed in 14 years and 9 years in terms of how people acquire their pets, how they rehome their pets. Can you talk a bit, Nat, about how things have changed since when you first worked here to now, about how people have gone along the lines of rehoming their dog?
Yeah, I think obviously it's kind of the topic of the podcast that we're here to talk about today, but the main change that I've seen is the kind of want and ability for people to be able to rehome dogs online. I think when I first started, rescue and rehoming was kind of one of people's main options for if they felt they could no longer keep their dog, and so we were getting perhaps a bigger range of dogs coming into rescue for a variety of different reasons. I think now it seems as though there are a lot more dogs available online for various reasons. And perhaps maybe we're getting different dogs because of that as well. So it's easy for people. I'm sure we'll get onto that, but that's probably the main change that I've seen. I don't think there were many dogs advertised at all on various sites when I first started, particularly when I first started the rehoming side of things and working with customers. Whereas now it's everywhere.
It is everywhere. So you've seen it go from hardly anyone really selling a dog online to now. Would you say it's the main place to get a dog, or would you say it's on par with a charity?
I don't know. I mean, if you think about the numbers that can be advertised and sold online, probably yes. It doesn't necessarily have a limit, whereas a lot of rescue centres and things will have kind of a capacity that they can work at. Really, the online sales side of things is as many adverts as people want to put on for dogs that they've got in their own house. So in terms of exactly what the numbers are, I'm not sure if there's been much to compare them, but anecdotally it appears that there are just so many dogs online. And sometimes if you run a search for a particular breed, especially the more popular breeds, you'll get thousands of listings, and it just seems a bit crazy. It's huge.
And the same with you, Chris. Obviously you've worked here a bit longer than that. So going back the 5 years before Nat started, were there many dogs being sold online then?
No, I think when I started, the majority of the dogs here were sort of unwanted pets that had maybe been in homes for a little while that had come here. I know the kennels would be full, but very rarely be a waiting list. It'd be quite often people could just turn up with a dog and we'd have space and capacity to take it in. Then, we've had the explosion of breeds, those Staffordshire Bull Terriers that were coming in. in their 10s and 20s with litters of puppies, through to huskies and other sled dog types that became the fad, to now this sort of stranger place where the dogs coming into us is what I would say, like the toy breeds and the fancy little pedigrees that were probably never in rescue when I started here. You know, a long time before I saw my first Chihuahua or Pomeranian here, and now you can't move for them sometimes.
Yeah.
So, which has kind of mirrored the online sales and just the ease it is to get a dog from a breeder online.
Absolutely. So have you seen a difference between the breeds that have been coming in as well? You mentioned this a bit. So I know when I started, like a little bit after you, we saw a lot of mongrels, your good old-fashioned mongrel.
Good old mongrel.
You don't see those anymore.
No.
You
Now
love
it's a
cross
cockapoo.
collies. Now it's a cockapoo. So now it's a dog that would be free to a good home if it was sold privately. A crossbreed, you can pay up to what, like £800,
And more.
1,000 and more.
Yeah.
So if people can get money for it, then
It's
that might be their first option to sell online rather than bring it to a rescue. Are we thinking it's maybe financial?
It was an easy, unregulated way to make money, I would say, especially when the whole Staffordshire Bull Terrier thing started. You know, it was litters of Staffordshire Bull Terriers that people could breed to make money from. And then it was very interesting that as the market became so flooded with them, that people couldn't get rid of them. And then we started to see litters of puppies and individual puppies came in and the price dropped. And I suppose it's like anything in any goods that are for sale. If you flood the market with them, then inevitably you're going to end up with them unwanted and reduced prices. And I think that really echoed because they were just so flooded and people could make money.
You definitely see a lot of those, what I kind of term designer crossbreeds, much more so than the mongrels now. And I think we're also seeing more older dogs as well, not just puppies that have been bred, that are being advertised online too. And I think there's probably a whole host of reasons why people are doing that. In some cases, it probably will be the money-making thing, especially if they've paid out a considerable amount in the first place. But I think probably more so it's for concern for their dog, and perhaps that they don't want to bring it into a rescue, or they want to be able to have some oversight as to where and what home that dog's going to go to.
I think that it's quite easy to frown on it, but quite often it gives people that bit of ownership over where their dog's going. And reputation, I think in the past, rescues are places that are shaking buckets for people to give them money to provide blankets for their dogs and coats and to help keep them warm through the winter. And, you know, larger rescues like Wood Green provide an excellent standard of care, but I don't think that's caught up with the reputation of rescues. So people selling online might be saying, you know, I don't want to burden my local rescue. It's not that this dog's abandoned or abused or neglected. It's in love. It needs a good home. Best way maybe I could do that is to sell it myself, and then I can vet them and I can make sure I get some money to make sure it's going to a good home. But there's a lot of pitfalls in that as well.
Yeah, people have the best of intentions sometimes, don't they?
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
then you get the other side of it as well. Going back to online sales of dogs, like where did it all originate? For me, it was Facebook, maybe, where it started.
Yeah, Facebook. I remember seeing that explosion of your local for sale pages that people could sell their own pet and could sell litters of puppies, and it was very unregulated, and it absolutely exploded.
From Facebook, you then got kind of almost the explosion of the selling sites that are used for various products, and I think pets just became an extension of that. So your Gumtree and things like that, where it was very easy initially, certainly, to be able to list pets on there for rehoming. I suppose it just became the even more accessible version of it was like a yellow free Friday ads, free ads in the paper that you could do, but you could just do it so much more.
It's like another.
Easily.
It is another version of that, a more updated version of that, isn't it? So, what are the reasons for people wanting to sell their dogs online? Like you guys have worked outside with the dogs, intake and assessment. So, when people are coming in with their dogs that they've bought online and it's not really worked, what are the reasons why people are having to give up their dogs?
Well, we've seen a lot of, like really recently, I've had this dog for less than a week because I bought it online, and they told me it was great with cats, it was great with children, and when we took it home, it growled at my child or it chased my cat. A recent kind of our longest termer, bless Akira St. Bernard, that's been with us for touching about 5 months now, was a purchased on Gumtree dog. they'd advertised her as being good with cats, and the home she was going to had 2 cats. They took her home, and immediately she bolted after the cat, and we're talking a hunk of a dog in a St. Bernard. And sadly, she'd actually broke through a fence panel chasing a cat out of a garden and got a hold of it and did the cat some pretty severe damage. She wasn't able to be returned to the place that they sold her to, and the people couldn't keep her in the house because they had 2 cats. And obviously that emotion side of them attacking their existing cat, they just didn't want the dog in the house at all. So they responsibly brought her here.
I think she was quite a bit of an older dog
yeah,
as well.
She's,
so not
she's
an
about
easy
6.
dog to rehome, a giant breed, and in the latter stages of
and
her
hence
life.
been here for a long time. Yeah, and advertised as, like I said, great with cats, great with children, and it didn't work.
Do people say things like that? They're great with cats, they're great with children, because they genuinely think that, and that's how they see their dog, or is it because they're trying to sell them?
I don't know. I think
to someone?
There will be some people that are probably doing it to sell them to people. It may be that they may even have tried other avenues and that hasn't worked because of those behaviours. I think it's a massive risk for anything that you buy online, that it's almost buyer beware. You have to believe what the seller's telling you, but some people might just not see those behaviours. It's possible that if that's not been their setup, for example, or they've just seen a cat in the street and the dog's not pulled towards it, or perhaps they say the dog's good with children, but the children that they see are just in the street, they're out for a walk and the dog's never reacted to children. It's very, very different to actually living in a home with children. And I think sometimes I'm sure people do make it up sometimes. Other times maybe it's just that their environment hasn't presented that issue.
General nature of anybody, isn't it? You may like one thing in one situation but not in another.
Yeah, we see that time and time again with dogs that have lived with cats quite happily in their home, and then we try and reintroduce them to another home with a cat,
it's not gonna
and
work.
it's an absolute disaster.
And then some dogs will like some dogs and not like other dogs, and some dogs will like some children and not others. So it's in some aspects it's a lottery, and I suppose that's where the whole advice piece comes in about kind of responsible, what questions to ask if you're going to do it. Sometimes it's genuine and it could really work, and other times it could be quite a risk. As you see the giant St. Bernard chasing after your cat.
Well, yeah, nobody wants that. 60 kilos, something like
that.
Yeah. So you sort of touched on it briefly. What are the pitfalls when people are looking into rehoming a dog online? What are the risks?
I think, I guess from the seller perspective first, because you could look at it from both ways, is that I guess as we're saying that the buyer doesn't necessarily know that the seller's telling the truth, equally that is a risk that you take in kind of rehoming your dog yourself online.
So you don't really know where it's
You don't
going.
really necessarily
do a
know
home
where it's
visit,
going. It could very easily end up in the wrong hands, or even just with someone who hasn't necessarily thought through the process completely. They've seen a really cute dog and it's quite easily accessible. You can just go online, get in touch with the person, and the next day the dog could be yours. That the dog might then keep returning to you because perhaps someone's taking on a dog that isn't quite suitable for them and they haven't really thought through that process. Equally, there is a chance that the dog could fall into more kind of negative hands and there could be problems with it. You can't guarantee that in any situation, but it's just kind of making sure that you're as comfortable as you can be with where your dog would be going, because there's definitely a risk that it could end up in the wrong hands.
Are there some people that will have conditions set up, like I've got to go and visit so-and-so's, any interest in my dog, I've got to go and visit their home and do a home check, or they have to come numerous times, or is it always literally somebody turns up with the cash, pays that over?
It really depends on the person. And like I said, the responsible people that seem to think, well, if I ask for more money, then that means that, maybe they don't want the £500 of a dog, but I think if they get £500, it means the person taking it must be having a commitment to it. And they do want to control that process, but how do you do it? I'm not an expert in selling cars, so I wouldn't sell my own car. I don't know what questions to ask and where it's going, if that's in any kind of analogy.
No,
but
that's true. But a lot of people that own dogs think that
they do.
They do know
Absolutely.
a lot about dogs because they've had dogs all their life, or they've had that one for 2 years, and maybe do people really think about the process, about where that, if the dog's used to being only left for a couple of hours a day and it's going to somebody that works full time?
Yeah, I think the interesting thing is if your dog is used to that lifestyle, you don't necessarily know what it's not used to. You don't know what it's going to be like in a different setup, in a different scenario. So if you've always left your dog for, for 5 hours while you've gone to work, and he's always been fine because that's the house he's always lived in. So you think in his next home that will be fine. But unfortunately, that dog's never lived in that house with that person, and that person might not walk that dog before they go to work, or that person might have a noisy neighbour that might unsettle the dog,
So that's where the advice is missing, really.
Absolutely, yeah.
So it could work, but what you don't get with private selling is that advice.
The knowledge and the experience and the support, absolutely.
There must be loads of cases that go right, though. There must be people that rehome their dogs online and they're fine.
Yeah, I'm
do
sure.
we just hear about the negative cases?
Yeah, I would say we probably do. We tend to see things more when they go wrong than when they go right. And there are steps that you can take to kind of safeguard yourself and your dog in terms of asking those questions to try and ensure that you're kind of placing the dog or taking on a dog as responsibly as you possibly can. So yeah, I would say there are definitely cases it goes right. It's just there's risks there.
I think it's sort of important to know as well that we referenced Facebook at the beginning, that Facebook have now sort of banned the online sale of pets via Facebook, because they were just made aware of so many cases where it had gone wrong, where the wrong person had purchased a dog, or wrong thing had happened, and whether it was out of compassion for the dogs or reputationally, it was something they chose, that we don't want to be involved in this anymore. So it shows there's a few horror stories out there.
Yeah, and we do see a lot of, obviously, the times it does go wrong. There was an older couple that brought in a poodle.
Yeah, we've had a couple of examples with, I think the one that I'm thinking of was one of the key things with online buying is it's quick, it's instant. And a lot of people, that's a kind of something we've developed to as a society now, I think. You want something, you can get it. We're not always able to offer that here. We have dogs, but they don't always match the homes that are coming to us, and actually demand far outstrips our supply. So we get a lot of people coming to us looking for dogs that we can't give a dog there and then. And a lot of people don't want to wait. So one case that I can think of is one where the kind of people, they'd came in, they'd had a chat with us, they'd gone away. And then when we next heard from them, what we found out was that they had gone online, they'd found a breeder, they'd got a poodle puppy. They were an older couple, and it just was not the right thing for them. Luckily, in that situation, they actually had family support, and they were able to support them and take the dog on, so it didn't have to be rehomed through rescue. But when we spoke to them afterwards, they said that they definitely had made the wrong decision to go for a puppy, and they wished they'd kind of listened to the advice that we'd given, and would definitely be coming back to us for more advice. So the aim is to support them in finding the right dog for them, in whichever kind of source that comes from. But yeah, that was just one example of where kind of being able to get something quite quickly didn't go wrong.
Because a lot of people, they think, that breeders are the expert. People that are selling their dogs know what they're talking about, and they do take the lead from them, don't they?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess it's hard not to believe what you hear when it's coming from someone that is an expert in the breed, and I won't deny that there probably are breeders out there that have got a lot more experience and knowledge than me on specific breeds, but it can just be that environment and an individual dog. You can have as much difference within a breed as you can sort of between breeds in terms of behaviour. So understanding that, and that not every home is necessarily going to be suitable, but you can completely understand people would look to go there for advice, because it's quite specific. It's about that breed. Whereas we're able to offer quite often a much more kind of round picture of advice that really takes into account the people side as well as the dog side, because both are really important.
And what is a breeder as well, because the term breeder makes you sound like there's some kind of profession behind it and some expertise.
Yeah.
And random story, but this morning I was in the barber's getting my pre-podcast haircut, and the window cleaner.
That's so sweet.
I know. But the window cleaner came in, and he was a KC registered Cocker Spaniel breeder, and he was chatting away saying that basically he was having trouble selling his Cocker Spaniel puppies because he was basically priced out of the market by various local puppy farm / breeders that were completely undercutting his price. So while he was trying to do the whole responsible thing, he was saying it's just harder and harder now to breed responsibly, because the competition can completely undercut you by having 2-3 times as many litters that are unregulated and sell them for half the price.
So how come puppy farms can sell their puppies for half the price compared to this reputable breeder?
it's more in quantity, isn't it? It's there are no regulations, but it's the same as anything in this world, isn't it? It's how well can they be policed? You know, so a lot of your websites like Gumtree and things will say, you know, it will flag to them if you try to advertise more than X amount of breeds per year or more than X amount of dogs from different litters and different breeds and things like that. But people will find ways around that. You know, so when they advertise themselves as a breeder and you turn up and, come in a house and this is mum and dad, or actually, you know, we'll meet you halfway in Tesco car park. If you don't know, you don't know.
We've had a lot of those stories, haven't we?
A lot of
Sorry, I
car
can't keep
parks.
looking at your hair now. I can't focus.
Pre-podcast haircut.
Are there any positives about rehoming a dog online, sourcing a dog
I mean,
privately?
you've got a lot more choice, I guess, would just be something that I would say out there. You can see a lot quicker what's available. And there are stories. There are going to be positives from doing it. Like I said, we just don't see them as often. If you do it responsibly and you're careful, and I think you give full consideration to what you need and ensure that the dogs that you're visiting or talking to people about are able to kind of cope with those situations, that's going to put you in a much better position than just kind of basically don't go for what you like the look of, and that's the only thing. Kind of make sure you're giving much more consideration to the creature that you're actually going to be inviting into your house for potentially the next 10 to 15 years, and really needs to be able to settle there.
I guess it becomes more like a shop online, doesn't it? Rather than actually matching
It's just so
the
easy, isn't it?
personality.
Yeah, it's so
It
easy.
is so easy. And Mrs. Smith down the road has got a cockapoo that's absolutely lovely.
Yep.
I want a cockapoo. I can just go online, find one in my area, go and pay £1,000 and I've got one.
Yeah. How often do you just see something on
me.
TV now and you know, stick it in Google or Amazon or something and go, look, it's there and it'll be delivered to me tomorrow.
Yep.
So is
So
that reflective
impulsive.
of our society then?
So
that we just
impulsive.
want something
Instant gratification
now.
and impulsivity. And I think there's also with dogs as well, it's almost kind of like a right to have one. Like, why shouldn't I have a dog? Doesn't matter if I work full time or, you know, these guys have got a dog and so-and-so's got a dog so I have every right to own a dog.
And if you go to a rescue centre and they turn you down for a particular dog because you work full time and that dog can't cope with that, some people do take it as no, I can't have a dog. And they go out and they think, well, I'll source one myself then.
Part of the reason why so many people have turned to online, I think completely unintentionally, rescues have ended up with a bit of a bad rap because we are careful with where we place our pets. They've often come to us from particular situations. They may have been having a difficult time. And we want to make sure that we get it right. So you often hear the story that kind of getting a dog from rescue is really, really difficult and that you've been turned down. So many times that is not personal at all, and those homes are amazing. It's just that rescues often have a capacity that they work to, and there's so many more people wanting dogs.
And we need to make sure it's the right match, don't we?
Yeah.
So that dog doesn't come back again, that family's devastated, the dog's got to start all over again, which it could be really hard for some dogs, especially if they're quite sensitive.
From a rescue, you know, especially like this, it's a professional service. You know, you have knowledgeable, skilled, experienced, trained people giving you advice with every intention that we don't want these dogs to be here sitting in kennels. We want these dogs to be in homes. You know, it's of no benefit to us to keep this dog here and turn people away. But the benefit of our skill and knowledge and training and expertise is that we aim to get it right. And sadly, you know, when people come with a certain perception of, I saw this one on your website and this is a breed I've always wanted, it's a bit of a difficult negotiation sometimes to say that it might not fit.
Yeah, I think we're all dog owners. We know the benefits and the joys of owning a dog. Like, if everyone coming to us that is suitable and can offer a home that is good for a dog, we would, I think I'll probably speak for all of us to say we'd love them to have a dog and to be able to give them a dog. It genuinely isn't anything personal. It's just something that we're not able to do. We just don't have.
We just don't want to ruin people's lives.
Yeah,
by
we
giving
want
them
to
the
make
wrong
sure
dog.
it's right. Exactly. And we can see and we learn from experience where those problems occur. And that's where we can offer advice on. We don't necessarily want to make decisions for people, but by sharing our experiences and our training knowledge and things like that of where things go wrong, that's where we can hopefully help make a better informed choice.
So why don't we have enough dogs?
It's very interesting that there's more dogs as pets in the UK than there were 2 years ago. However, there's less demand to go into rescues than there were 2 years ago. So they're going somewhere.
We just don't know where. Where are they?
But if you click online and you search a dog within 5 miles of your house, you will find hundreds and hundreds of them.
Whereas we haven't seen a mongrel for years. Where
No.
are they? Do they still exist?
I think a lot of them that you do see online, the majority are puppies, but there are some adult dogs, and some people quite rightly want an older dog rather than a puppy. It suits their situation better. They feel they can offer an older dog more of what they need than a puppy. So those people are often going to want to come to rescue. But you do see them online. I think the key thing that is often the case is just make sure if you do see them online that you're understanding their behaviour and you are asking lots of questions, because we've definitely seen dogs come in that haven't necessarily been advertised with behavioural issues or being really hyperactive and needing lots of exercise like that, but when the person's gone and got them, they've found that it really didn't work. I mean, the cat issue was a great example.
Yeah, we had another one a few weeks ago. I spoke to a lady with a German Shepherd that's with us now as well, but she bought a dog online, took it home, but she had a 3-year-old, and this is a horror story for parents. Sorry, Helen. But you know, and the child came in the room, and the dog just froze. Is how she described it to me, and growled at the child. She kind of recognised that, shut the dog in a different room, but then tried again. You know, and the dog was growling, and this time barked and sort of ran at the child, and made a phone call. And that afternoon, the dog came in here. We've got to pick up that, because it's not right to leave it in that situation. But if you don't know you need to ask these questions, or someone gives you the wrong answer, it's quite scary what could happen.
So is adopt, don't shop a realistic message in today's society?
I'd rewrite it, but it wouldn't be quite so catchy.
Go on then.
for it.
Intrigued.
We'll be the judge of
Mine
that.
would be try to adopt and then responsibly shop. I think it would be good if everybody approaches a rescue centre, because even if you don't get a dog from them, there's advice out there to help you then responsibly shop and hopefully not get in a situation where you're taking on a dog and it's then ending up in rescue. So yeah, it's not as catchy, but that's
I think we can
like
make
it.
it work.
I like it. Yeah, I mean, it's right. Don't just see a rescue necessarily as a place, and especially for Wood Green, but that's where you will get your dog from. But see it as a place where you start your journey. You get your responsible advice, and you ask an expert, this is what I need, this is what I want to do, how can I do it, and give it the best chance of success possible. You know,
That's a really good way of looking at it. Yeah, start your journey with a rescue, and then even if you get a dog elsewhere, you can still come back to us. I mean, I had a lady who wanted a collie cross puppy that came in the other day, and she obviously was, didn't have much luck, and she ended up getting one elsewhere, but we helped her through that process, and she was viewing the dog with us on the other end
Great,
of the
yeah,
line,
see,
going,
that's it.
what do you think? Sending us pictures, and we were telling her what sort of questions to ask, and she was so grateful for the advice, because she didn't want to go down that route, but actually with our help and support,
yeah, and
hopefully, it was only a few days ago, but they're doing okay.
to have our eyes open to people want a dog, and if they can't get one at their rescue, they will find one somewhere, and inevitably that will be online. So, the supportive message and supporting the journey through it is just as important as finding a home for one of our dogs, especially if it stops it from coming in a week later when it's done something that it wasn't designed to do on a
That
label.
helps everybody.
Yeah, it does definitely.
Win-win.
So what kinds of questions should people be asking when they go and buy a dog online?
I think before you go to buy a dog anywhere, one of the key things to think about is your situation. So what can you offer a dog in terms of who lives in your household, family, other pets, how they might feel about there being a dog there, what your financial situation is, housing situation, how much space have you got, how much time have you got is really important as well. And then start to have a bit of a think about what are the things that are important to you in a dog. So size can be important, but actually there's a lot of misconceptions. Some of the larger dogs require a lot less exercise. But what do you want to do with your dog, and why do you want a dog? Do you just want a dog for companionship, or are you quite into training and you'd like to get out there and do a hobby with your dog? Do you love going out to the mountains for walks regularly? Think about...
Or do you want a couch potato?
Yeah, think about the
Get a greyhound.
personality. Think about grooming requirements, all of those things that you might not necessarily think about initially that are kind of going to be important to you. And then do your research. What fits with that before you approach anywhere really, to look for a dog, regardless of whether that's a rescue or online. Obviously, a rescue is likely to help you make that kind of decision. And then stick to your guns, I think, is the thing for me. Don't compromise because the dog that you see looks like exactly what you want if it isn't what you want, if that makes sense. If you've got grandchildren, for example, you've really been wanting this really cute Bichon Frise and you see it, but you find out that it's really not good with kids. Think about how that's going to affect your life. Do you not want to be able to have your grandchildren round? Are they likely to stay overnight? Do you want to have to keep them separate all the time, or do you want a dog that they can interact together? And you can have those family events. I remember going to my grandparents when I was much younger, and the dogs were always in, and that was probably one of my first experiences of being around pets. But it's just thinking about that detail before you even kind of head out there.
Meet the dog a few times as well. If the owner genuinely cares for their pet and they want to rehome it to a responsible home, they won't expect you to take it away the first time you meet it. So go and meet it and then come away and have a think.
So don't feel pressured to take the dog there.
Yeah. I would imagine a responsible owner wanting to do it that way would be, we don't want you to impulse buy our dog. Everyone's got photo reels full of their dog, doing stuff, ask to see pictures of it and see it in its normal environment. Definitely don't meet in a car park somewhere. Vet histories, try to dig into the fact that dog is what they're selling you, If they say it's great with kids, can it be evidenced somehow? Have they got kids, that kind of thing. We've got photos of the dogs with their kids. Ask some questions, dig a little bit.
Yeah, I think things like if you want a dog that's going to be good around other dogs, see if you can take the dog out for a walk, for example, and go to areas that are similar to where you would normally walk. Because if you just go in that local area where there are no dogs and you never see one, you might have no idea until you take that dog home how it's going to react. I think in many cases, owners that are responsibly kind of selling their dogs will be happy for you to do that. Will probably want to go with you, and they'll probably be asking you as many questions as you're asking them. I think kind of if it's easy, it's probably too easy for a reason in some cases. Expect someone that really cares about their dog to want to know about where their dog's going.
Brilliant. Well, thank you so much for that. That was really interesting. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
And we will see you soon because we're going to come back and do some more.
We'll come back.
Absolutely.
Don't forget your pre-podcast haircut.
Do I need to get one? Is this a thing?
I might have started something.
I did get my hair done yesterday, actually.
Now
So
I feel
you're
bad.
under pressure. But thank you very much.
Thank
you.